Hi there, it's me, Annalisa Boyd, Orthodox Christian wife, mom to 8, bread baker, candy maker, self-proclaimed doula, accidental midwife, and the author of The Ascetic Lives of Mothers, Hear Me, and Special Agents of Christ, all through Ancient Faith Publishing. I am going to attempt to talk about something today that may seem controversial, and it may seem like I'm jumping on the political bandwagon, and I promise you I'm not. Just like when I talked about abortion and how abortion is not a political issue for Christians because it was decided thousands of years ago that, what the church's response to abortion should be. And also, in the same way, what I'm going to discuss today is not from a political standpoint. It is something that has been part of the church. Yes, the church has failed periodically and in being true to what Christ said about loving one another, but it is still something that has been a truth for thousands of years that we have believed, so it should be a non-issue for us. So I wrote this just the other day after the 2 shootings and after the cops were shot, and I'll just read it. I'm looking at the posts about the murders by cops, and I'm looking at the posts about the murder of cops, and all I can see is segregation and us all missing the point. We do not have to choose who to mourn. We can mourn them all and fight for justice and protection for all. Now, I was writing that as a Christian, not as, whatever my political view happens to be. Has nothing to do with who I am as a Christian, because before anything else, I belong to Christ. And so I need to try to live my life as a Christian first before anything else. It supersedes everything. And I feel like a lot of us are really missing the point. I expect the world to miss the point because it's the world, but I don't expect Christians to be battling with each other in person, online, on different, social media sites. But there are a lot of Christians who seem to have no restraint whatsoever, and they're just kind of going at people. And there's a problem with that. There is a problem with that. So I'm going to just let you know my background before we get started. I have had a number of people ask me what nationality I am. I kind of blend in depending on how I'm dressed and who I'm with. And I had a woman come up to me at a women's retreat once and ask me if I was Egyptian. And I said, no, I'm not. And the next morning she came up to me and she said, are you sure you're not Egyptian? I'm like, pretty darn, because I know who my parents are. But I am half black, half white. My daddy is black and my mama is white. And I grew up with this. Now, I have been told by a number of people that I do not really have a voice and cannot really speak on race-related issues because I am only half black, and so I don't really understand. In fact, my great-grandmother said the same thing. She would not tell me about her childhood because I was mixed, and because I was mixed, I wouldn't understand because I was mixed up. Now, she was 92. I wasn't going to say anything to her, and God bless her. She was a wonderful Christian woman, but that is a sentiment of a lot of people. And my perspective is I have absolutely been too dark for some people and too light for others. I have been watched by people in the store while my white friend goes on her merry way and doesn't get a second glance. But I've also been threatened and rejected by black people. And yeah, so I feel like I've definitely experienced both sides. And that definitely influences where I'm coming from, for sure. But I don't think it influences me to disregard the plight of others. I mean, when I was 5 years old, we had a cross burned into our front lawn because my dad was black. When my brother was a baby, my mom, my white mama in Texas, got chased by the KKK because she had a black baby. I don't know a ton of people who have had those particular experiences. So I have definitely had some experiences, but what qualifies me to say what I'm going to say today is not the color of my skin. It is me as a Christian. So my first question is, are we supposed to take sides? So I see online, I see Christians taking sides. I see them taking sides, that they feel like they have to be one or the other. But guess what? That is not our job as Christians. Our job as Christians is not to take sides. Our job as Christians is to stand up for what's right, but not to take sides. We have a situation where there have been 7 men who were murdered. That's a problem. And we should be horrified by all of it, not taking sides, because when we take sides, we suggest that one side or the other, whichever side we're not on, somehow either deserved it or the action was more justified. And as Christians, we can't think that way. We can't think that way. We value life. Which brings me to number 2. Number 2, are we made in the image and likeness of God? The Bible says we are. Are we made in the image and likeness of God? If yes, then are all people made in the image and likeness of God? If the answer is yes, then we need to acknowledge that there's something bigger going on here. Because guess who loves all of this separation? Guess who loves us fighting against each other? We're not fighting against people. Satan loves this. When he looks at any of us, he sees the image of his enemy, the God we serve. And when we get sidetracked and we are attacking one another, we are attacking the icon of God in one another. And that is not our job as Christians either. We are misdirected. Because where there is hatred, there is no room for prayer. None. When we are hating each other and all our anger is directed at one another, there is no room for us to pray and be light to one another. St. John Chrysostom says, no one can feel hatred towards those for whom he prays. That is very important. If we are feeling hatred towards somebody, we can't truly pray. We can't approach the throne room of God. So what are we doing? We are not following the Lord. When we are attacking one another, we can't. We can't. So what do? Number 3, do we just sit there and do nothing? Absolutely not. Glad you asked. Very important question. Of course, we do not just sit and do nothing. We have a wonderful example. Wonderful. Here is a picture. Look at this picture. It is amazing. It is Archbishop Lakavos of the Greek Orthodox Church, who is right there next to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He is not remaining silent. He is standing up for what is right. And that is exactly what he should have been doing. You look in the background, you see the nuns. There were hundreds of other clergy from the Protestant churches. There were, and lay people and all sorts of people, Christians, supporting this movement for freedom and justice. And that was right. But at the same time, if there was a faction of that group who had, found a stray police officer and started beating him, it would have been just as right for that bishop and those clergymen to go and stand between the rioters and the police. And that would be the right thing to do, to stand in defense of anyone who's being mistreated. That is our job as Christians, to stand for what is right. Now, the Bible tells us that this is what we're supposed to do. Jesus gives us 2 commandments, and he says that these 2 commandments cover everything. We're supposed to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our strength, and with all of our mind. And the second is we are supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves. We are not supposed to seek revenge. We are not supposed to treat others the way they have treated us. We are supposed to treat them the way we want to be treated. How do we want to be treated? With love, with respect. And that's how we are supposed to treat others. No matter what they look like, no matter who they are, we are supposed to treat them with that love of Christ. The love that Jesus showed the men dying with next to him on the cross. He showed love and compassion to them. Those who were beating him. I think of St. Stephen too. St. Stephen, the proto-martyr, he showed love and compassion to his assailants, to those who were throwing stones at him, to those who were going to end his life. He had love towards them. But we can do things. But we have to make sure that we are Christians first. And we can go on peaceful marches. And we can write letters. And we can be part of the solution by working to make laws and to change the way things are in our neighborhoods and communities. But we have to actually leave our houses to go do that. We need to stop typing on the keyboard rebuttals to people, and we need to go and be light and love, the love of Christ, to the world around us. Because if we do that, there are millions of Christians in this country, millions of us. We can make a difference in our communities, in our churches, in our communities, teaching our children the love of Christ toward everybody will have a big impact. Valuing the life of everybody will have an impact. Teaching respect of everybody will have an impact. Not just those who believe what we believe, but everybody. 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 God calls us to love everyone. And that leaves no one out. And especially, he tells us especially to love our enemies. So if there is anybody who has mistreated you, we're supposed to kind of love them more. If there is anybody who has hurt you or caused you problems, we're supposed to love them more. If they don't know Christ, we're supposed to pray for the salvation of their souls. Our priest once asked a question, and I think I said this before in a different blog, but podcast. He asked a question about how is it possible not to hate your enemies? Now, he was coming out of being a chaplain for 25 years in the military, so he had seen a lot of, I can't even imagine the things that he has seen. How can we not? How can we avoid hating our enemies? And I thought about that for a long time. And my answer was, there is nobody that I want to go to hell. There is nobody who I hate or dislike or am hurt enough by who I would want to be separated from God forever. That includes my dad, who was an alcoholic and didn't provide for us and was abusive to my mom. That includes the man who, getting personal here, the man who molested me when I was 8 years old. I don't want him to go to hell. I want him to know the love of Christ and for his soul to be saved. There is nobody who hatred means that we want somebody to be separated from God forever. But God has called us to love all. Doesn't mean you give chances to everybody. If they've hurt you and stuff, you're not like, yeah, come over, hurt me again. That's not what's being said. But at the very least, we can, with earnest, pray for the salvation of their souls. But people, we cannot feed in to the hatred and the segregation and the manipulation that we're getting all over the place, because everybody has hurt. We need to be part of the healing. We need to be part of the healing. And I love that Archbishop, he's right there making a difference in his world, in his community, taking a stand for what is right. And that is our job as Christians, not to take sides, but to follow Christ, to live in love, and to serve others. Please don't flame me, but if you must, I would love to have conversation. This world we live in is crazy, and it's getting crazier, and we have to make sure that we don't get caught up in that hurricane of crazy, that hurricane of hatred and anger and anything that would take us away or distract us from being followers of Christ. So let's do what St. John Chrysostom said. It says, no one can feel hatred toward those for whom he prays. Let's pray. And let's keep on working at our salvation, one mama moment at a time. Thanks.